All right, Scott Schwalbe. Yeah, I believe there was some note sent out. I didn't see it, so hopefully I won't tell any lies from the note that went out. But living here in Rochester, I'm going to kind of go through the introduction of myself probably through this process. So why don't we just do that? I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through history, but myself. As I was preparing, the idea was to kind of talk about the journey a little bit. And I think it's really important when you think about, I've traveled quite a bit, and you look at the Midwest and you start working with folks in Minnesota, based, separate from LA or Silicon Valley. It's a whole different mentality with startups and working with businesses, and we'll kind of talk through that as the experience and what that does with your workforce and when you're thinking about building teams and where you're building the teams, and when you're out looking for money and you're out looking for things. Midwest right now is the state of Minnesota in a number of areas. There's medical down here in Rochester, electronics up in the Minneapolis area. There's a lot of new businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups, but they're not getting funded as a company in Silicon Valley. And there's a couple reasons for that, and we'll talk through that hopefully today. Just my perception of what I've seen. So, I grew up in southern Minnesota. I joined the Navy, and lack of planning kept me in there for 20 years. I joined for 4, and I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And next thing you know, I was in for 20 years. I was in cryptology, worked at NSA, part of the Naval Security Bureau, did some recruiting, finished my education, but it was interesting as I look back at this and just kind of putting this together. While during those 20 years, I went and got my real estate license. I did some multi-level marketing stuff, things that I could do while still in the Navy. When you think about, trying to be a little more entrepreneurial, doing things outside. So while I didn't consider myself an entrepreneur, I recall actually, going back, I had no idea what the word meant. I was studying Arabic, and my Arabic instructor gave us the Arabic word for entrepreneur, and I had no idea what the English word meant. And so I had to get the definition of the English word in order to understand the Arabic. So it's kind of an interesting process. But as you move through that, then I left that in the Navy, and then I joined Celestic, and that's really was my introduction to electronics. So here in town, worked with the move when IBM electronic card assembly team moved over, and worked with that group. And obviously, anybody knows Celestic, it's a Toronto-based company, which was IBM, in reality. Great experience for understanding process, I got engaged in the M&A process, got engaged in, unfortunately shutting down plants and a lot of business development, so good experience through that process. But what you're going to see through this is, then I went to another company who did business development, organizational development, and then I went to a company in Minneapolis called Logic PD, and that's really kind of the baseline of what brought me into in this current business. But throughout all this, as you can see, there's no serial entrepreneurship in here. There's no, it's a building, it's a process for myself, for my own journey, was the skills and the education and the training. And I would say that to some level I was the reluctant entrepreneur. And I don't know, some of you are probably in that case, and some are serial entrepreneurs. But at the same time, when you see an opportunity, everybody comes at it a different way. I don't know if anybody reads the Wall Street Journal, but today, they actually had an article in there about why some entrepreneurs feel fulfilled but others don't. Really interesting article talking about different levels of, it's really not all about independence. Like you hear a lot, well, I just don't like, I want to be autonomous, I don't want to deal with people, I want to make my own decisions. But, that's part of it. But the money's part of it, the hope for money. So anybody that's been an entrepreneur, if you're joining it for the money, don't do it. So it's a long process, and it takes a while. But it was really an interesting article because, and I don't know about you guys, I don't have time to read, so I have people that bring me stuff and tell me things. So that's another thing. We'll talk about the journey and how you get your news. Somebody walked in the other day, and I know when it's raining because I get wet, but I have no idea if it's going to rain or be nice the next day because I literally don't watch the news, don't look at the news, don't read the newspaper, don't basically get informed when from people around me, and so it's for me it works, but. So if we think about the journey, and again, I don't want to. So my transition then into consulting and investing, and I actually invested in a beer company. The company was going out launching a new beer in 2008, and I think the failure of that business actually allowed me to do a lot of things differently. So I think in a journey talking about the failures that actually happened to actually as building blocks. So when you do start your business, for me personally, hopefully I can share a couple things that if you're just starting, you won't have to repeat them, and that's in failure. So got involved, put some money in the business, and was planning on just being very passive. And next thing you know, that it wasn't going as well, so I got very active and put more money in, and should have never been in the business in the first place because one, I didn't understand the market. I had no idea about distribution and beer and how that works. So number one,
could hook you up with the good people.
Yeah. so the number one lesson is as you're stick with your knitting. Understand everybody here has great experiences that you've built over your life and over your career and what you're doing, and all I can say is my experience and others that I've talked to is take advantage of that. Take advantage of it and try not to just think you can just jump into something that you have no idea about unless you're going to go spend a lot of time learning and educating yourself. So that was number one. Number two, I really watched the entrepreneur that started that business who came at it from a perspective of feeling that he had to have all the processes in place, had to have an office, and had to have everything in place before he actually went out and sold anything. And so by the time he went out to sell anything, he was out of cash, and then he had no way to go get any more cash because he wasn't selling anything. So bottom line, when I started NimbeLink, and we'll talk about that, is number one, get a customer if you can. Now understand if you're in the medical space, that's a little more difficult. I've been through that FDA process and understand the clinicals and all of that. But you still can get a beta customer, and you can still go out and prove that somebody will buy this. So that was a real learning experience in how to do two things, and how to do it wrong, and then really hiring ahead of anybody that's got their business and is moving a little bit. The real challenge is when you get aggressive and start hiring, and make sure that you're not leaving a bunch of cash and a bunch of market on the table. And that's where I'm at right now. So we'll talk about that process of how do you go through that. So key learnings is know thyself, is really understand who you are, where you've been, what you're doing. In my journey, that was really critical for starting NimbeLink, a company that we started in 2013. I'll go through the company here in a little bit. The other thing key learning is relationships. Is just so important. In the last 2 years, 3 years, the relationships that I've built over the previous 10 years at various businesses keep coming up. And so it's just critical to keep those relationships. Events like this, networking, getting to know people, understanding, and then cooperate. Be willing to give of yourself. And it's tough when you're running fast. When somebody calls you up and said, "Hey, can you make an introduction to somebody?" Then step back and take the time to do that, and make that connection, because one of the best pieces of advice I ever got about networking is basically don't expect to get anything out of it. If you can walk into a networking event and give and feel like you're going to add value by making an introduction or adding value, I guarantee that you're going to take away from the networking. So the relationships. And these two here, process and governance, I thought about that. I mean, entrepreneurship, a lot of times that's what you're trying to get away from. You're like, holy smoke, I'm sick of process, I'm sick of all this following the rules, I'm sick of all of this, everything that you step by step. But I can tell you that without process, I haven't seen anybody succeed for a long time. They might have a good start, but if they don't have process in some level. And then the idea of an entrepreneur is, especially if you're leading that company and doing it, is how do you make that balance of too much process and not enough process, and when do you put that in, and when do you initiate that process. So that's a real art that you'll, in a lot of cases, if you don't, that's where you bring in a partner sometimes. And that's where you.
The functional size simply that, right?
Yeah. Well, he said this is a function of size.
Kind of.
Yeah, so day one, I put a CRM tool, a customer relationship management tool in place. One person, two people, and we put the discipline of the process of tracking our leads and our opportunities and flowing them through the sales funnel. So now, 2 years later, as we've got 18 people in the company and 7 of them touching customers at all times, we have that record all the way back from day one of what that customer did when we talked to them. So that was a process. So I think it's really, there's key process, but again, you're right. It's, I didn't actually put any process in on vacation policy until we actually had employees. And when we talk about that, we actually, we just initiated our vacation policy, and we're trying a no vacation flex plan. I don't know if anybody's experienced that or worked with that, where you're not accruing vacation. You basically take it when you need it. You take as much as you want or as little as you want, but bottom line, it's a trust, because it's really all about trusting the team, trusting everybody that you're working with. And again, I couldn't do this when I was running a factory with 400 employees. It's different than if you're running 15 professionals that all are together, working together and trusting. So again, when it comes to the relationships and the trust, is really critical that all of you, I'm sure, build within your organization. So I think there's some big companies out there doing that. Netflix, there's some bigger ones, and so we're experimenting with it. And the biggest thing is making sure that you hold each other accountable to actually take time, because we're actually I actually had somebody the other day said, Scott, when you're taking your vacation? So it's like, so that was great. I mean, they're coming back and say, hey, we all need to be doing this. Maybe when I'm getting ornery, or if I'm not paying attention, it's time to get out of here. So that was my hint. Governance, again, when you think about governance of everything that goes on in your process of who's, you still have to have roles and responsibilities. You have to have, when you're running projects, that you have a governance model of some sort to understand who's going to do those checkpoints, hold each other accountable through that process. So again, my recommendation is just don't wing it, and actually put the process. And I'm going to introduce to you a tool that I use that you might find helpful in that. And then again, discipline. You hear that over and over, waking up in the morning and doing the things you don't want to do first, and just kind of working through those processes, using, this is Stephen Covey. Did anybody ever still do that? I mean, that was a long time ago, the 7 Habits, but it still sticks with me, urgent, important, and not important, and urgent, which we end up doing and spend our time and just putting in quadrants and just really understanding, and then having the discipline to do the things that you don't want to do. And I got caught on that today. I have a simple little quote that I need to get out and I was supposed to do it this morning, and as I'm driving here, I said, hey, where's my quote? And I could have, if I would have just spent the 15 minutes this morning to do that, then the customer and my employee would be happy, but I didn't get it done, and because I just, that one slipped through. So it's, again, you have to keep correcting yourself and working through that and making those mistakes. Any other input? Go ahead.
Question. Are you going to comment about the work-life balance a little bit sometime later? Or?
Yeah, I will. I actually have that as one of my core.
Both for yourself and also families.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've come to realize, and this is my interpretation, is that I kind of got rid of balance and really started using the word integration. Because if I think about our lifestyles and you think about what you're doing, if you're not integrated with your work and your spiritual life and your family and education, and if it's not all integrated, because as soon as you have balance, it's like, okay, balance means, okay, I'm going to work 10 hours, I'm going to spend 2 hours with my family. I'm going to spend 1 hour at church. I'm going to spend 30 minutes doing this. And all of a sudden you got to balance. All of a sudden I work 12 hours and holy smokes, I only spent 30 minutes with my family. Now I'm going to start feeling guilty. And then tomorrow I'm going to have to spend 2 hours with my family to keep this balance. And so bottom line, really working with family, working with your belief system, whatever you're doing, and integrating it all is, so for instance, next week when I have to go on a business trip, a couple days, my wife travels, she's fortunate to be able to go with me, so we try to integrate that trip, and try to at least spend a couple hours. We're going to Chicago, so we spend a couple hours doing that. I've got terrible eating habits, so I go to McDonald's 7 times a week, 8 times a week. So I integrated my exercise plans every third time I walk in. So now I've got my exercise program going along with my eating. So it's integration. So so that's kind of how we look at that as integrated. But just walk in every other time, and you get your exercise. So it's great, not too bad. Gain a little bit, I feel good. Got a lot of energy. Got a lot of energy. Any other? And I'll get to that. So I'm going to talk a little bit then about NimbeLink and about how we started it and what we did. So NimbeLink is we're a technology company really focused on cellular communication within the IoT machine-to-machine communication space. So we really took a niche we're a very horizontal play from a technology point of view, but we're very zeroed in on that technology. So anybody that's, any OEM business that wants to launch a product, launch a gateway, get into the market that's focused on cellular, that's NimbeLink would be the company that they'll come to. That's our goal. So NimbeLink is the company that you'll come to get your product into market. And so what we've done is created building blocks and intellectual property around certified cellular modems, and then built those around processors, and then built around an ecosystem of contract manufacturers and being able to light up the provision with like Verizon, so we sell to Verizon. We connect to multiple clouds, so if you look at, we're pretty much agnostic to the cloud. If it's Microsoft or telemetry or Exosite or ILS or whoever the cloud guys are, we're really driving to do that. So customer can come to us and say, I've got an idea, I want this unit. We had a customer come to us and said, I want a unit that'll sit in a tractor, be a full Linux running computer, running GPS, Wi-Fi, hotspot, cellular, pull all the data out of the CAN bus, and here's the spec sheet, and I want it in 3 months. Fully certified, up and running, 100 of them. We did it. So the reason we were able to do it is because we had certified cellular modems already built, so we didn't have to go back through that certification process. We had the Linux board support packages developed already around the TI OMAP processor. We had so we had all the building blocks. So if you look at us in a nutshell, that's what we do. And there's a question.
Yeah, I wonder about if you can. Like if you hear about IoT, like a lot of things get thrown at it.
Yeah.
What you described is pretty heavy integrated, like real Linux and stuff.
Yeah.
But on the small end, you have devices which are supposed to cost less than $1, all included,
Yeah.
right? So in this whole space between like the few $1,000s and between $1,
Yeah.
what's your sweet spot of the type
Sure.
of device you integrate?
So
with?
first, why don't we just talk about what the heck
Sure.
IoT is, and then M to M, and then I'll get right.
By the way, I'm ignorant about what a cellular modem is.
Sure. So it's basically like your cell phone. It's basically connecting to your cell.
Okay.
Yeah.
On cell.
Cell. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. So instead of for your RF, you're using cellular instead of Zigbee or Z-Wave. But great point. You hear all the hype around Internet of Things, IoT, and then you hear M to M, and kind of the way I explain it when I'm talking about the marketplace is, if you think about IoT, really thinking about all the consumer connected home. You look at the wearables. You look at all the small devices that are trying to be connected. Your toaster talking to your refrigerator, talking to your thermostat. That nobody's really figured out why yet. But all those things that are going to talk to each other, and that's how. If I look at the Internet of Things, That's how it's, the consumer portion of it. Machine-to-machine connectivity is really more of the business-to-business, the industrial. So it's your tractor, it's your pumps, it's your remote devices that are communicating at the sensor level. It might be as simple as temperature or electromagnetic, sensing around, electromagnetic fields, pulling back, reporting. Anytime you think about somebody rolling a truck or somebody driving to go check on something, that's where we come into play from a cellular perspective. So to your point, we are not focused, we're not doing anything with the $1 Wi-Fi chip or the Bluetooth or anything in the consumer. NimbeLink zeroed in on remote monitoring, outside, ruggedized, typically, or even sometimes inside buildings where people need to be connected to cellular. You'd be surprised how many people have created products in a building like this, thinking that they're going to plug their building up, their unit on the wall, and then connect it through Ethernet to actually get all their data. Well, as soon as they come in, the IT guy says, "There's no way you're connecting that device into my network." So we do something. We created a simple little Ethernet to cellular product. So you just plug the Ethernet in, and then you've got cellular. Now they can connect to the Microsoft Cloud. They can do their analytics. They can do all their data, and then they can actually make decisions and do things with it. Go ahead.
Are you guys part of the Industrial Internet Consortium?
I am not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is that development?
So far I've not joined any consortiums or any standards groups, but I think that's a very GE's very involved with that. So I think that they're doing a good job of trying to figure out where the space is going, but I just haven't joined it yet. So same thing with there's a number of standardization bodies that are coming around and working through various things. So if I started the company, again, as that journey, we talk about it, I wasn't really prepared, financially to go start a new business. I'm not a serial entrepreneur, so I didn't have a bunch of money to just go start it. So I had to go out and raise money, and so in the state of Minnesota. So I have used the Minnesota Angel Tax Credit. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Minnesota Angel Tax Credit. I used it in 2013, 14, and 15. So I did take advantage of that. It allows, if you don't know about it, just really quick, if your investor, for every dollar that's invested, they get a 25% tax credit if your company qualifies. So they don't have to be from the state of Minnesota. They can be from Iowa or Florida, and they basically at the end of the year they'll file and get their check back. So you just have to fill out the application. This year they did a little bit different. They allocated a certain amount of money for the metro area, and then they allocated a certain amount of money for out of the metro, and then for minority-owned businesses. And so there's still a lot of that money out there available for. I think in September, October, the money that's not used for outside of the 7 counties will get into the 7 counties, and they'll be able to use it. But even this year, there's still some money left even in the 7 counties. Last year was gone in March, and here we are in May.
What is it?
7 counties in the metro area of Minneapolis, and Hennepin, and Anoka, Ramsey,
Dakota.
Yeah. So that's the 7 county area. Great program. There are great programs within the state of Minnesota. If you go research those, you find those. There's good groups that we integrate with, like Minnesota High Tech Association. Here in Rochester, there's as you can see with the Rochester Economic Development Group building up, Southeastern Foundation. There's a lot of resources that you can grab from. And you should take advantage of those. I was able to. Because I was able to tie into it. The other thing I did in 2013 is participate in the Minnesota Cup competition with the business. Again, a great opportunity to get some awareness. You get Minnesota Cup. I think applications for this year, you can't do it any further. I think they shut it off. But if you get into the semifinals, you get a couple mentors and that kind of work through in your business plan, help you with your business plan. We were semifinalists. We weren't finalists. But again, it was a very helpful process through that journey to utilize and just outside visibility. Because we started in February 13. It was just myself and my partner, and he stayed at his current job all the way through June or July. We brought in one employee in the March time frame. really structuring the business, and then really didn't have our first revenue until October or November of 13, and then drove into 14 with our certified cellular modems and our products, and then I think I just did the numbers too. Probably had something like 35 customers in 2014, and I think we've had about 67 customers so far this year. So it's we've got the traction. So now I'm at a point, we talked about in that journey, I did small little tranches of friends and family money and you know, friendly people. I did pitch to Minnesota Gophers. I don't know if you've heard of those groups up in Minneapolis and stuff. Not going to say anything either way. I wouldn't do it again. So that's all I'll say. And it's just the process and so forth. But bottom line, to raise money, it's a lot easier if you have customers and if you're generating revenue, and if you've got some processes in place and you can show that your funnel's growing and your traction. That's been my experience. We talked a little bit about the difference between Silicon Valley and Minnesota. In Silicon Valley, you know, they just expect you to just raise money, and everybody expects. You know, the mentality out there, I was just reading this not too long ago, the mentality is that, hey, you're gonna succeed. And so you're gonna succeed till you fail. And you just kind of drive to that, and you build it, you'll get all this money, and then you fail. In Minnesota, is everybody's, and then you start over, and you will get more money. And in the Midwest, our mentality is that,
Like you fail.
yeah, failure doesn't matter in Silicon Valley. In the Midwest, it matters. You know, if you've got a failure and you're trying to go out and start another business, it's really difficult. So you really, you know, the mentality is, hey, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to kind of walk through this, and it isn't necessarily always the right answer. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that, but so now I'm at a point. I talked about the next challenge to the journey is to go out and raise more money if I want to do that, and I'm just right in that process to decide. Yeah, here's the market. It's very large. It's kind of like the wild, wild west out there in some places. So just going after that. If you don't go after it quick, you're going to leave it sitting there, and you're not going to get the connections. If you go after, if you go after it too quick, you could actually burn yourself out of cash. So that's, the challenge of wearing the hats as an entrepreneur, the finance guy, the operations guy, the marketing man or woman, trying to do all those hats, building, because if you can't hire it, you've got to do it yourself or find partners to do that. Structuring a business, LLC, C Corps, there's a lot of different choices out there. It's going to be really a decision on what your end goal is of how you structure. You got to be thinking about your end goal right away. So if your end goal is to be acquired by a strategic publicly traded company, you might as well start out as a C corporation right away and just go the process. And if you're so there's just, and that's getting advice, talking to different people, and again, you'll get different opinions. But I think my journey was I started out as an LLC, and then I converted to a C corp in the middle, and it wasn't that painful.
C corp proper or S corp?
C corp proper. Yeah, because we decided we're going to be big, so so we're going all out, going all in now.
Public money really requires it.
It does.
Venture.
Yeah, but you can convert from S corp to C corp.
You could, yeah. And you could be an LLC and report like a C corp,
right?
With your tax. But ultimately, if you're going to go with any venture capital, you're going to do any outside funding, strategic funding, C corp's really what you need to do. So one last, I'm trying to make sure. Let's see. So this is the most important thing of a company is your team, your people. We took a picture. We were that was the other. Oh yeah, we were finalists in the Techni Awards last November, whenever that was. So that was like holding up our little finalist thing. We didn't win it, but we were finalists again. All those little things help. Press, just getting engaged. Showing up is in July now. I think we're going to be. I don't think they read CIO magazine. It's you probably don't if you're not a CIO, but we're going to be in I think one of the 20 most recognized end-to-end solution companies in that in July. So we worked through that. So all these little things all add up, and it's all part of it. But bottom line is, I think we were talking about that. Build a good team, get really good people, and you can work through it. I mean, we'll have product failures, we'll have hiccups, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to go down wrong directions. But bottom line, with a good solid team, you're able to come back from that and build that. So again, just some sampling of products sitting in tractors. This electric car charging station. So this is our product. It's a little cellular modem certified on the network. Right now, if you want to design a product, put the chip down in your board. After you get it all done and designed, then you have to go through the certification process. LTE right now is about $45,000 to go through the cert process to certify your product. If you design our product in, then your product will be certified. You skip that $45,000 in the 3 to 4 months. So that's the value proposition. Time to market, skipping that process.
So what's that chip? Call it chip. What does it cost?
Yeah, so it's about 2.5 times the actual module itself. So if an LTE module costs $70 to buy from Telit or Gemalto or U-Blocks, you can expect to pay probably $175 for ours, roughly.
So for certified posts for LTE or Wi-Fi or other.
All cellular, so
Oh,
certified on the
cellular.
Verizon network or the AT&T network or T-Mobile network. So for your Wi-Fi chips and your Bluetooth chips, they're already, you buy them FCC certified. You don't have to go through any other certification chip. So you buy these for a couple bucks and they've been through it. Cellular still requires a separate certification. So again, that's been our niche.
Your product's only for domestic market, right?
No, I sell globally. I have
In that case, you
GSM.
have to certify others, carriers,
Yeah,
other countries.
that's correct. And some of the other countries are not as onerous as the U.S. The U.S. I'd say is the worst right now for. If I can do that backwards. But yeah, so they'll work in other countries. So that's just kind of sampling of some products we put it in.
Does the one business that doesn't want to even communicate, business to themselves, communicate with these? Let's say they have some remote product somewhere.
Yep.
And they can use this for that.
Yeah, so like in this case, you got this pump sitting out here that this company installed, and they were sending somebody out at 3 o'clock in the morning or something to see if it's still running. They basically integrate a little, simple little device with cellular connectivity, and it'll be an exception. If it shuts off, they get a message. If the pressure is too high, they get a message. So if you look at MDM, that's really what's happening. And MDM's not new. I mean, SCADA has been around. There's been technology. Everybody in this room, if you've owned a propane tank or if you wanted to monitor that forever, and people could have 20 years ago for $5,000. But now with technology, with the cost of the technology coming down, with the infusion of like Microsoft Cloud to make it easy to actually for people to get their data to do analytics. Azure, is that how you say it? Azure.
Azure,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. So if you look at,
I don't work for them. I work with them.
Yeah.
So you can still, you can call them however you like.
Yeah. So now you can put a monitor on an outside tank and get the level monitoring for a couple $100. So all these things are coming together. So again, we have a series of outdoor monitoring things in barns and soil moisture, and so again, just kind of a sampling. What I want to do real quick before we roll, has anybody heard of the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS? No. So I can hand this around. Gino Wickman wrote this book called Traction, and basically in this book, it takes you through a process to get your business plan onto 2 pages. So ultimately, your core values, your core focus, your 10-year target, your 3-year target, your marketing strategy, what's your target market, your 3 uniques, your proven process, your guarantee, and then down to your 1-year plan, your rocks or your goals for the quarter, and then your issues. Basically on 2 pages, you go through a process. He's got it, basically, I actually consulted, grabbed this a couple of years before I started NimbeLink and actually implemented it into a 50-year-old company that needed some discipline and some process. And so day one, when there was only 2 of us, we actually went through the exercise to document this. This is actual our NimbeLink second quarter update. I actually crossed out some of the numbers, if so you want to pass it around, I'd like to have it back. So, but if you want to just kind of look at that, all I want to do, if you're in a process of trying to write down your business plan, write down your strategy for a team and for folks. It's a pretty simple process. It makes you focus, makes you think about it, and then bottom line, it's called traction because it's all about getting things done and moving. But you'll notice our core values. We talked about integrity and trust is number 1 for our team. Focus, discipline. So really, making sure we're focused. Humble confidence. I've got a team of very strong, very good engineers that the last thing we want is to sit in front of a customer to tell the customer that they're totally wrong and we're right, because we have to be humble with our knowledge, with what we do, everything that we do, because that's the way to work through it. And then we have integrated lifestyles, and that's probably the biggest challenge, actually, that integration balance is that we challenge each other, but we have that as one of our core values. If you have this up, then it makes your hiring decisions going forward a lot easier, because we actually we lay those out for hiring, and then we actually use those. Then, if you'll see it as is in the book, is you use those for your appraisals. Is this person a plus or a minus to the core value? Are they following? So this basically is the guideline that all the employees basically have to measure ourselves and each other. Every Wednesday we have a meeting where we go over our issues and our rocks as a team. So every single Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we have this team meeting, which he calls the level 10 meeting in here. So if you're looking for a simple process, something to go away, and this, it was just, I highly recommend it. I've seen it work in multiple places. You can do it yourself, and you don't have to actually bring in a consultant to do it. It's a quick read. If you're thinking about driving that, I would just highly recommend it, that you might want to think about that. So that was my other takeaway on this 80-degree day, that you can walk out with something to leave with. So that was, and then the one thing, will the good of others. So if you want to think about one thing that our team, myself, has been living by, hopefully. We all struggle with it. We don't do it all every day perfectly. But if you wake up in the morning and will the good of others, I think your life will be integrated. You'll be happy regardless, because you're going to have ups and downs. Business is going to fail. Things are going to go by bad with the relationships, and you know that you're conscious that you will that good of each other. So that's my one thing takeaway. And I ran 5 minutes over. Told me I had to end early today because it was so nice out. Questions?
So do you just supply the cellular piece, or are you guys actually manufacturing? You said you built 100 of these.
Yeah, we do it all. We basically do the design. We'll do, if I don't have the skills, then I pull in other sources. So that orange box that you saw there with the Linux, we actually did the board layout, we did the board support package, we did the application layer, and then we actually had it we're having it manufactured at a contract manufacturer. We're managing that. We're doing the sustaining engineering, making sure it's drop shipped and delivered.
Are you able to manufacture it in the U.S.?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Actually, on the box, it actually says "Made in the Midwest" on it.
Nice.
So they actually have a stamp right in their plastic. So they had the mold that way. And we're making all of this here in the Midwest. So it's all built in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. So right now, just bottom line, if you design it without a lot of labor in it, electricity doesn't cost that much more here than it does in China. So it's so it's really about your design and how you design the product that you can build it here and make it work.
So from a competition perspective, are there big name players that happen to still be in this niche of yours?
Yeah, so there's 2 companies that are really focused on this cellular modem. There's one called Multitech, which is in Minneapolis, privately held company. There's another one called Janus RC, which is down in, it's a Connor Winfield company down in Illinois. But then the biggest competition really is the OEM themselves, the engineers saying, hey, I can just design this chip and put it down myself. I don't need to spend extra on a bill of material. I don't need to believe in it. I can just do it myself. So it's the not invented here. It's the mentality of that. And then it's really interesting. The actual component manufacturer themselves sometimes compete with us. So Telit, their salespeople will go in and say, well, we'll help you with the certification process, and which they don't. And they end up coming back to us a lot of times. But those are the competitors.
So, I mean, your value proposition is that you really have like a ready-to-go product versus when they said they can build it themselves, they probably don't realize how much time, money,
Sure.
failure, etc. that's going to occur that might have set them back when they would have just purchased what you had in your
Correct.
pocket.
Right.
You know?
I had a customer yesterday that said, hey, I'm going to build 20,000 units. And at 20,000 units, you should do the chip down and go through the certification process at some point. But what I asked them is, as we talk, have you proven out the market? Do you really understand the cost points? Do you understand your product? And as we go through that, they did. And I said, okay, well, who's going to build your first 500? And so let's design this in for the first 500, get it out fast, prove out the market, and then we'll help you design our product out and put the module down if you want. So, go ahead.
So is the game plan to always continue like more like the project-based approach, where you go deep in project and services also on top of it, or you really want to be like off the shelf at one point?
So we're doing a lot of off-the-shelf also. I sell this through DigiKey and sell this through Arrow, and so somebody can go to DigiKey and buy this and integrate it themselves. We have customers today that all of a sudden are ordering 100 of them, and we never heard of them. So we're putting all the open source documentation on our website. Right now, you can go to DigiKey, buy the development kit, buy the modem, and go on our website with all. And if you have any engineering experience, you can design this in yourself and never talk to us.
What do you envision, like a 50-50?
Yeah, probably more 20% of the stuff we're going to get engaged with, and I'm filtering. So if I have customers come to me and I see something that looks like they really need our help and they have the ability to do quite a large volumes, then we dive in and help.
So you're starting with partners, like, hey, we can't deliver on that small scale, but this is a great local partner, maybe you...
Sure, yep. So I don't know if that was what you expected today. It's kind of, when Jamie said come here, it's like, give me a really broad kind of leeway, it's like, it's an 8-lane highway. Brian?
Scott, what did you do on, you were talking about getting press, which is great, that always helps. Did you have somebody that helped coordinate that marketing effort, or did you guys do it internal? Or
Yeah, we really did it internally.
how do you figure out kind of the people that you want to make sure you get connected with and the ones that are valuable?
So back earlier about when I talked about getting in the beer business versus the electronics business, I had no idea who to talk to in the beer business, and we actually went and hired somebody to go help us with PR and so forth. This particular business, myself, my partner, we knew a lot of the industry. We knew the industry. We knew who to talk to, where to go, and so we really did it ourselves. So we eventually hired somebody that actually did a lot of the tactical stuff. The website, keeping us, blogs and driving it, but we actually reached out, and we found that because we were reaching out and we had the relationships, we were able to get in there and get the conversations going. But it doesn't say that we shouldn't at some point maybe hire an outside PR firm, but so far we're getting the leads we need, and so we're not probably going to do that. But, I think different industries probably have different requirements in that space, and ours didn't. So. Go ahead.
You mentioned about your business is a horizontal integrator.
Yes.
So can you tell a bit more, because I'm not very familiar with the terminology, vertical versus...
Yeah, so what's really interesting in the IoT M2M space, I would define that there's a lot of what I would call micro verticals happening. So somebody that wants to do vaccine monitoring, they want to monitor the vaccine refrigerators. There's another person that wants to monitor pig barns. There's another person that wants to monitor propane tanks. There's another company that wants to monitor trucks. So you've got all these kind of small little, what I'll call micro verticals, and we play across all of those. I don't care which one I can put the cellular technology in all of those. We continue to watch those. At some point there's going to be a vertical that's large enough and interesting enough for us possibly to go after, but then you're making that decision, you're competing with your customers, and so far we haven't done that. But we're lucky that we get to make a lot of little bets and get to see a lot of things. Our relationship with Verizon, they bring us in new opportunities and leads every day, so we get to see a lot of different applications.
You mentioned you use a CRM platform. Which one do you use?
I'm using Zoho. I've actually implemented Salesforce and Siebel and there was one more, Sugar, in various different companies. And so when I made the decision, I used Zoho. Zoho, if you haven't heard of it, is a spin out, a bunch of Salesforce guys started it. So they actually, it's got a lot of the same functionality, but it doesn't have all of the stuff that you'll never use. So I'm just using it to manage opportunities through the funnel from lead to close. I'm not using it as a 360, integrating it into my financials at this point and integrating it. So I'm using it just for funnel sales management. So it's easy to set up. You can get a free version of it for 2 people, I believe, 1 or 2 people, and then if you want to add more than that, then you pay. So I'm still, I think, with 11 people into it, with add-ons, with the advanced analytics, and so I think I'm less than $120 a month. And I was able to do all the setup and all the manipulation myself. It's really easy to set up. Yeah.
Couple ones. Do you have remote cold load that you can upgrade your units on? And then also, I know she works in cryptography, and that's a very hot topic of, okay, how do you prevent
security?
Security on remote devices like this.
Yeah, so some of the devices, they get put out there and there's no way to update them over the air or to do you got a simple unit that you turn it on, and if temperature goes out of range, it sends you a text message. That one, you throw it on the wall and you're done with it. All the way to full Linux operating computers with over-the-air firmware updates and over-the-air ability to change your sensors and adjust how often they record and so forth. From a security point of view, being that we're using cellular, we're doing VPNs, so cellular automatically is a little more secure than if you're open through Wi-Fi, and if you're using the VPN and you're using the security within the Verizon network. So that's probably our first level of security. Typically, with customers like with the farming customer that I use in the tractor, they've actually then built out that application within their own infrastructure to put the security. And if you work with somebody like if it's IBM or ILS or telemetry, they're actually starting to build various security levels within their cloud servers and devices. So we haven't done anything more than that with our products at this point.
So I kind of was expecting to see a tractor parked out there that you drove here remotely, but since you don't have that,
yeah.
What's the coolest project you think you put this in so far that you can talk about?
A drone.
Okay.
It's kind of cool. So it's taking taking pictures, and we're not flying the drone with it. We're actually sending they wanted to, and we said, guys, I don't trust the cellular network that much yet. Please don't do that. They wanted to fly that. They wanted to fly the drone with the cellular. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm trying to, like you said, the tractor application. Some of the simplest things, you probably heard about the deployment of trash cans that are talking to the cities. So a lot of that's happening through cellular. So basically, the trash can when it's full, that basically sends a message back so they know when to go empty it. Because they were routing and sending the trucks around every Tuesday or every Thursday at hours. So they were either completely full or they were completely empty and they were wasting it. So now they actually have indications and sensors. I think the city of Philadelphia was the first one. We're not in that one, but we're in a couple airports. Which is, who would have thought?
That's scary.
Yeah.
Well, it's labor intensive.
It is, and it saves gas, it saves money, it saves trash from piling up. So if you think about,
It keeps your customers happy.
yeah. So that's really that's the ROI of the machine to machine. And that's where when I mentioned the IoT, the consumer stuff, they're still working through what's the return on investment to having your toaster talk to your refrigerator, to talk to your blender. But they all will have sensors on them. They will talk to each other.
So how competitive are the cellular networks, and what type of pricing can you get? Anything from very small data packets to very large, and what's the pricing roughly?
Yeah. So they have a whole different machine-to-machine tiered pricing outside of, you can't walk into the Verizon off retail and actually get a machine-to-machine plan. So you have to go through a process, become a Verizon partner, you have to sign, get your insurance and license, and you sign up as a company. You can get plans, down to $1 a month, based on, a couple bucks a month for 500 kilobytes, up to, $80 for a 10 gig plan. And then they have pooling plans, so you can actually put a bunch of them on a 1 megabyte plan, and then pool them with another on 150. So if these 10 go over, you're still in a pool. So they're getting better about that. The really interesting thing that's going to come out in the next 2 years is the LTE bands are going to be separated. So right now LTE is going like this, and it's getting faster and faster and faster. Well, here in about 2 months, they're going to make a decision to actually separate some bands, and then actually separate bands for machine to machine. And they're going to be really low speed rates. They're going to be low power requirements, and they're going to be much lower cost. And so that's going to drive a whole other level of Qualcomm basically will then have to create the core chips for that, and then companies like Telit and Gemalto and U-Blocks will make the modules, and then we'll put it on our form factor. So about 18 months after they make the decision till you actually get the first prototypes, because in this case they're restructuring. AT&T just made the decision to shut down their whole 2G network, so they have to do something in order to get this low band rate. Verizon's keeping their 2G network open right now because all the voice goes through 2G. It's just data that's going through the LTE right now, so it's just a matter of timing. But that's going to be really neat. So then you're going to be able to do really, really low power on cellular, and you're going to be able to do low rates. But that's going to be, like I said, 2017, 2018.
When you do a sale, is it a one-time sale or is it a recurring component?
Yeah, so 2 things. So let's say you design a product, and our hope is that you're going to build that product for 3 to 5 years. And so every time you go build, if you're going to build 2,000 of them a year, you'll buy this component each year. But then also, probably about 20% of the products I sell, I tie a recurring data plan to it. So I resell the Verizon data plan. So I do have some recurring on that. And then I do have a few products where I wrap around the complete cloud service, and I resell that also, but not much. So it's kind of a recurring hardware sale. As long as that company takes off and sells, they'll keep buying that for the life of the product. So a one-time sale will hopefully get 3 years of component sales.
So you mentioned the Ethernet port on the one. Do you do any form of, if Wi-Fi is available, you use it, and you only use cellular as backup or anything like that?
I haven't done it on any of my products at this point. There's other competitors that have products out there that'll go back and forth. So far, we just haven't done that. We've been asked to do that, and when I go out and look at some of the competitive products, and they're already developed and they're out there, so we probably won't. But you can buy that today.
So who's to blame if something fails? Like, do you have is the language in contract so that clear enough that you're really protected from if the cellular company screws up?
I sure hope so. But I've got insurance for that too. But that's the goal, is to let everybody know that if. So I've done 2 things. One, I purposely do not control anything. So I'm not actually turning things on and off. I'm monitoring, and then so if for some reason it does fail, it's not like I'm in a barn and I turn the air conditioning off because my temperature went and killed all the birds. So it's really somebody's going to have to go make that action. So that's the one thing that we've done. Secondarily is if the cellular network goes out, we do have language in our terms that we can't control that, and we can control workmanship and the components within our product and the functionality of the product. So we're trying to cover ourselves, but in today's world, I guarantee that somebody will try to come after you, so you're for
Does the human security, those Homeland security, those people monitoring these communications on that network?
So are there people monitoring? Yeah, so for sure.
I'm just curious because there are some hackers going to get into this.
Yeah, right now, if you don't do the right thing on cellular and leave yourself as a kind of a public IP address, you can get into cellular phone calls and stuff. But if you go into the VPN network, then you can protect that. It's not out there in the world. But right now, I've got this my text alert product. If somebody got that phone number, they could just hack into it. But basically, they would know the temperature of that barn. So farmer doesn't seem to really care if they know his temperature. So in some cases, it depends on the application. They try to protect it, spend the extra dollars in the money.
All right, maybe one more question.
Yeah.
So,
Two more.
two more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So how do you protect for, you set up your sensor someplace like that, and then all of a sudden they come in and store some bags or metal sheets or something that knock out the signal, and because they're always moving stuff around. So how do you protect, or how do you notify or find out that all of a sudden the signal's been cut off almost like
So typically, depending on the application, you're sending a health heartbeat once or twice a day, so just to make sure that it's working. So if you haven't got if it's supposed to just report on exceptions, you're still just sending the little heartbeat saying, hey, are you alive? Are you working? And so it's a little SMS text message that comes back, and then if it's not, then you can you can ping it again. That's typically what we're doing.
Okay.
Is our communication through Verizon, or do you do an independent cloud provider as well, in addition to Verizon?
Do independent clouds in addition to Verizon. Verizon is really just the data plan to get the information, and then that information either has to go to the end user or it has to go to a cloud analytic base to actually do something with it. So yes, there's that. So if you look at the ecosystem, it's the sensor, it's this gateway device that gathers the information, it's the communication, if it's Ethernet or Wi-Fi or whatever, and then it's basically then the cloud and the data analytics. And so if you look at where they're projecting, where all the real value is going to be created, it's sort of like if you think about business intelligence about 15 or 20 years ago, where they really were driving it. They're saying that the applications, really the big data play, is where the value is going to be created eventually.
All right, good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.